There are moments in life when pain strikes like a sudden storm. Emotions rise, so intense, you feel like you're about to fall apart. But have you ever asked yourself, are we truly hurting? Or is it our mind? That makes the wound cut deeper. Today, I want to tell you a story. Quiet story. Not loud, not flashy. But if you really listen, it just might change how you face pain and your deepest emotions. Deep in the forest, by a silent stream, lived an old hermit teacher. And one peaceful afternoon, he shared with his students a lesson some spent a lifetime without ever realizing. Stay with this video just for the next few minutes, because you're about to hear something powerful. You are not your sadness. You are not your anger. And pain can never defeat you unless you let it. In a peaceful mountain forest, where people lived in harmony with nature, there was a small village, almost cut off from the outside world. At the edge of that village, beneath the shade of ancient trees, stood a simple hut by a crystal-clear stream. It was the home of an old teacher, a man deeply respected by everyone in the region. People simply called him the teacher. No one knew where he came from, how old he was, or what he had been through. He was just there, quiet, still, present, like the mountains watching clouds pass by, without ever saying a word. The teacher didn't teach through rules or books. He taught through presence, through the way he lived, through silence and compassion. From time to time, young seekers would come, hoping to learn something about life, about the mind, about how to remain still. When storms of the world rage on, they didn't call it studying. They simply came to sit beside the teacher, to listen, and to look inward through his gentle words. That evening, the forest was bathed in golden light. The sun was slowly sinking behind the mountains, casting shimmering trails across the stream. Under a great old tree, 3 young students sat with the teacher in silence. No one spoke, only the sound of flowing water, the whisper of wind in the leaves, and distant birds returning home. The teacher sat cross-legged, his back straight, eyes half closed, as if listening, not only to the world outside, but also to the quiet stirrings within. After a long silence, as the sky began to turn deep violet, he opened his eyes, looked at the students, and smiled gently. "Do you feel it?" he asked. "This silence is not empty. It's full of life." One student nodded softly, eyes still watching the stream shimmer with twilight. The teacher reached down, picked something from the earth. It was a tiny stone, still wet from the stream. He lifted it to eye level, then turned to the students, and from that moment, a deep lesson began, not through theory, not through words, but through a simple metaphor that would touch the very heart. The teacher sat still by the stream, his eyes calm, the kind of calm that only comes from living through many seasons of storm. Suddenly, he leaned forward, reached into the cool, clear water, and picked up a small, round stone, soaked, glistening, resting gently in his old, steady hand. The stone shimmered in the golden light, like a tiny star, fallen to earth. He held it up, looked at it for a moment, and asked softly, "If you compare this little stone to the great mountain across the valley, which one is bigger?" The students followed his gaze. Far on the misty horizon stood a towering mountain, ancient, unmoving, like a wall of time itself. The oldest student smiled and answered confidently, "Of course, the mountain is much bigger." The teacher nodded, his lips curling into a warm, quiet smile, not the smile of someone hearing the right answer, but of someone gently opening a door in another's mind. "Yes," he said, "but you see, pain is just like that." He brought the stone closer, letting the last light of day reveal its small, silent form in his hand. For a person who lives with awareness, pain is like this little stone. It's there, yes, but it's not heavy. They see it, they understand it, and they let it rest, without holding on. But for someone still lost in ignorance, without insight or understanding, the very same pain feels like a mountain. It crushes them, it surrounds them, it fills their mind, until they can barely breathe. The students fell silent. They had never imagined that emotions so real, so overwhelming, could change completely, depending on how one sees them. The teacher leaned forward and placed the stone back into the stream. It dropped with a soft splash, sending tiny ripples across the surface, then disappeared. Pain is the same, my dear ones, he said. If you don't hold it tightly, it will pass. But if you clutch it, like a stone in your heart, then it is you who will be pulled under. A breeze drifted through the trees, rustling the leaves, and dancing with the sound of flowing water, as if nature itself was whispering in agreement. And in that quiet moment, the teacher's lesson about the stone, the mountain, and the way we look within, gently planted a seed in the hearts of those still learning how to stand steady in life. After a long pause, as if letting the lesson of the stone sink into each heart, the teacher gently tilted his head, gazing at the stream flowing silently nearby. Then, with a warm and steady voice, he began to speak again. Long ago, a man was walking through the forest when he was struck by an arrow in the shoulder. He collapsed in pain, his clothes soaked in blood. But instead of seeking help or trying to stop the bleeding, he screamed in anger. He cursed his fate. Why me, he shouted. Why is this happening to me? The students listened, still and quiet. In his panic, he thrashed around, rage taking over, and in his frenzy, he drove a second arrow deeper into the same wound. The pain doubled, but he didn't stop. He kept shouting, blaming, tearing himself apart. And so came a third arrow, not from outside, but from within, an arrow made of despair, of self-destruction. The teacher paused, his eyes moving gently across the faces of his students, now marked with quiet reflection. You see, the first arrow, that's life. It's the pain we cannot avoid, an illness, a loss, a broken moment. It comes and it will pass. But the second and third arrows, we create those ourselves. Fear, anger, blame, resistance. They turn a wound that could heal into a scar that never fades. The teacher placed a hand on his chest, softly, as if touching a fragile flower. A person who is awake doesn't deny their pain, but they don't shoot more arrows. They breathe with it. They care for it, like a child who's crying. They don't ask, why me? Because they understand. Pain is natural, but suffering is a choice. His words flowed, like a cool breeze, through the hearts of the young students. And in that stillness, each one looked inward to all the times they had lashed out, lost control, or reopened old wounds, not because of someone else, but because they had unknowingly picked up the second and third arrows. The teacher gently closed his eyes again, leaving the silence to carry the lesson deeper into hearts, learning how to let go of the suffering they no longer needed to hold. After a long stillness, the teacher slowly opened his eyes. In them, a strange light, gentle, yet sharp, as if it could see straight into the heart of another. He looked at each student and spoke slowly, as if placing every word directly into their soul. Pain is real. Emotions are real. But don't confuse them with who you truly are. One young student furrowed his brow. Perhaps this was the most confusing thing he had ever heard. The teacher noticed and continued. When anger rises in you, don't rush to say, I am angry. Just notice, there is anger arising. Because anger is not you. Sadness is not you. Fear is not you either. These emotions are like clouds, passing through the sky of the mind. If you sit still, breathe, and look deeply, you will see no cloud ever stays forever. Only the sky remains. The students straightened their backs. Something was beginning to shift. Their faces lit up with the first glimmers of understanding. From within, the teacher went on, people suffer not because they feel something negative, but because they follow it. They resist it, fight it, blame it, or sink into it, like someone caught in quicksand. But those who are awake do something else. When sadness comes, they don't chase it away. They don't cling to it, and they don't run from it. They simply sit down, take a deep breath, and say, hello, sadness. I see you. The teacher smiled softly, like greeting an old friend. That alone, dear ones, is enough. The emotion begins to settle. It loses its power to carry you away. And when you're no longer swept away by emotions, that's when you can finally touch the stillness that has always been inside you. A gentle breeze passed through. The leaves whispered in the treetops, as if agreeing with every word. Below, the water in the stream still flowed, but somehow it felt quieter now, clearer, like the mind of someone who had just learned how to observe themselves. And then the teacher concluded, when you know you are not your emotions, emotions can no longer control you. And in that moment, you are no longer the one who is wounded. You are the one who sees the wound clearly and walks past it, light as the wind. The sun had vanished completely behind the mountains. The last light of day was nothing more than a soft orange ribbon stretching across the sky. Evening winds grew cooler, passing through the leaves, through the flowing stream, and through the quiet thoughts now rising in the minds of the three young students. The teacher sat in silence for a long while, as if waiting for nature itself in the lesson. Then he turned, his voice deep and steady, like the sound of stones rolling in the heart of a mountain. My dear ones, life is like a river. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it roars, sometimes it runs clear, other times muddy with storm. But within this ever-moving water, there are stones that do not move. He paused, his voice softened. They don't fight the current. They don't curse the flow. They simply stay, still, grounded. They are not swept away. Another moment passed. Then the teacher continued, quiet but unwavering. A wise person doesn't avoid emotion. They don't try to become numb. They simply learn to remain steady, like a stone in the river, not carried by anger, not drowned in sorrow, not clouded by fear. When you can observe your emotions, without reacting, without clinging, without running away, then you are no longer a victim of what happens around you. No matter how the world changes, no matter how others treat you, your inner stillness remains untouched. The youngest student slowly lifted his gaze. In his eyes, for the very first time, was a quiet understanding, one that needed no words. He had once been quick to anger, easily shaken, easily lost in his own storms. But now, something had changed. He no longer wished to conquer his emotions. He only wanted to sit with them, without being swallowed whole. The teacher smiled gently, as if he could see the small seed that had just begun to grow inside the boy. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to return to who you truly are, a clear soul, unmoved by passing waves. He pointed to the stream, to a large stone, resting in the middle of the rushing water. And on top of that stone, a small wildflower had taken root, swaying softly in the wind. Be like that stone, and if you can, let your heart become so still that even in the middle of the storm, a flower can bloom. Under the fading sky, the three students sat silently. No one spoke a word, but inside them, something strong and steady had begun to rise, like a stone rooted deep in the endless flow of life. The teacher stood up, stretching slowly, like an old tree waking from a long slumber. The ground beneath him was covered in fallen leaves, leaves from the old season, leaves of emotions that had already passed. He looked at his students and spoke in a calm voice, low but full of quiet life. My dear ones, don't be afraid of pain. Don't run from sadness. Don't force yourselves to always be strong, to always be happy, to always be perfect, because the truth is, it's in our weakest moments that we truly begin to understand ourselves. He raised a hand, pointing to the sky, where soft clouds drifted across the fading sunset. Emotions are like clouds. They come, they go. No feeling lasts forever. But the real question is, while the clouds pass through, does your inner sky still remain? Or have you forgotten that you are wide, open, and full of space? He stepped toward the stream, cupped cool water in his hands, washed his face, then turned to his students. Tomorrow, each of you will return to your own life. There will be pain, there will be anger, disappointment, and sorrow, and that is perfectly human. No one walks through life without a few scars. But always remember this: you are not the wound. You are the one who sees it and chooses how to heal. That one sentence flowed into their hearts like cool water from a stream, because sometimes what a young soul needs most is not advice, but the quiet reminder. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel weak. But you are not defined by it. The teacher turned and walked away, but the stillness he left behind carried a deep, gentle energy, like a calm after rain. And just before he disappeared into the trees, his voice came once more, soft as a breeze. In the storm of life, learn to sit with yourself, even just for one breath, even just to know, I am hurting, but I'm still here. And sometimes, that alone means you're no longer lost. The three students stood slowly. Their hearts felt lighter, not because the pain had vanished, but because they now knew they were no longer prisoners of it. And so, a new journey began, not far away, not in some distant place, but within. Dear friend, life never promised an easy path. There will be wounds. There will be pain. There will be moments when emotions feel like they might drown you. But it is precisely in those moments that you are given the greatest chance to return to yourself, to listen, to understand, and to stand steady in the middle of the storm. You cannot avoid every arrow life may send, but you can choose not to shoot more arrows into your own heart. You can learn to observe pain without becoming the pain. You can learn to breathe deeply, even in the chaos, and not lose the peace that lives inside you. And you can, starting from this very moment, begin that journey. No ruse. No need to become a perfect version of yourself. Just remember, you are not the emotion. You're the one who sees it. You are not the wound. You are the one who is healing. Walk forward, even slowly, but be fully present with yourself. And then you will see, even in your darkest days, the light has always been waiting within.